Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Eljay Johnsen Show. The Eljay Johnsen Show airs every Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Keep in mind, if you have any questions for myself or our guest, make sure to go ahead and tweet those live using the hashtag the Eljay Johnsen Show. So, today I am actually very excited for our next guest, and let me get into introducing him. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term founding fathers. I'm sure many of you in the United States can even name a few, such as George Washington, and George Washington. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with some of Bionicle's founding fathers, such as Christian Faber, Bob Thompson, Greg Farshtey. But how many of the community's founding fathers do you know? Well, today I am here with who I believe to be one of them. That's right, Andrew from BZPower, otherwise known as Black Six. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being on. I've been looking forward to this because it goes without saying BZPower has been kind of quintessential to the Bionicle experience if you are a fan online for its first run, and
Yeah.
it has a long and rich history. So we're gonna go ahead and get in that. For those who may be aware of you, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your long list of accomplishments.
So yeah, I joined BZ Power shortly after it started back in 2001, and over the years ended up becoming an admin there, and now more or less run the joint. So kind of keep an eye on the forums every day, making sure news gets posted, doing a lot of the stuff with our YouTube channel, our live streams over there. I've worked with Lego quite a bit as a Lego ambassador, and it's a lot of fun. Love working with the community and just having a blast with all the Bionicle fans out there.
Okay, interesting. So let's go back. Dinosaurs are roaming the earth, and the internet is just now starting to become a thing. And BC Power was not always one website. It's actually kind of a conglomerate of two. So run us through that. What were those two websites? How did that kind of happen? That doesn't happen all that often, especially nowadays.
Yeah, definitely we're a product of the times and how the internet was back then. Bionicle actually was released in Europe before it hit the States.
Mm-hmm.
So the people over there kind of had a head start. And so there are a few fan sites over in Europe. And eventually the most prominent one was Canoe Island. And so that was run by a guy in England and a guy in Germany. And so then John, Dimensioneer, started what was then the Bionicle Zone, and that was in July of 2001. And since the Bionicle Zone was kind of just a community and discussion website, and then Canoe Island was like a news and reference site. But as both of the sites were kind of growing with Bionicle's popularity, there's a lot of kind of cross pollination between the two. Like people who were staff on the forums ended up being like writers and reporters on Canoe Island, and so after about a year, the people who were running Canoe Island were kind of getting maybe looking to move on to other things a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and so they decided to merge with Bionicle Zone, and so we became BZ Power, and yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. So,
Okay.
John, who started Bionicle Zone back in 2001, he's still kind of behind the scenes. People don't see him that often, but
Yeah.
everything is still running thanks to him. He's the guy who pays the bills and make sure the server's lights stay on.
Okay. Yeah, because I would always hear about him, the infamous Dimensioneer, and I don't think I ever really saw him while I was that active. But he is still around, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. That seems like that early on there were not a whole lot of websites, period, but just fan websites. So that must have been a very unique kind of experience, and it really ballooned. So how did you get into that? Because I know you joined, like, what was it, August of 2002? Or
August of '01.
oh
So
one?
yeah, so like shortly after it started. So kind of back in the day, back in my day, um, we there's a thing. I guess it still kind of exists. So back then it was called Yahoo Clubs. Now
Oh
they call it Yahoo Groups,
gosh.
and it's still used to some extent. It's kind of like the poor man's message boards from back in the day. If
Yeah,
if you
that's
didn't have
ancient.
a place to host your own, you could go onto Yahoo and make your own club. And so I'd actually started a Bionicle club, and was running it over there. And then I found this Bionicle Zone place. I'm like, oh, this place is cool. Let me head over there. And so I did. And I'm like, oh, everyone, come on over to this place. You should check it out. And I just kind of, posting on there. Um, End up talking to Dimensioneer. I'm like, hey, so I was running this club and stuff. If you ever need any help, kind of moderating things. And he said sure. And so I became a moderator there. And back then it was that easy when there's only a couple hundred members on the site.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get in on the ground floor like that.
Yeah, no kidding. Just right place, right time. And
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, pretty much.
So you've been moderating for, well, goodness, close to 16, 17-ish years at this point.
Yeah, on BZPower, I've been a member for 16 years now. It's weird. Sometimes it doesn't feel that long, and sometimes it definitely feels that long.
Yeah, I can imagine there isn't much of a middle ground because running a site that large, BZ Power at it has a, let me see, it has a list that shows how many members that it has, and I know that BZ Power during its heyday, like we're like smack dab in the middle of Generation One, it had active average members of what?
Uh,
I want to say
there were
over.
there were definitely days where most days, like when you hit that peak point where like all the kids are home from school, like East Coast to West Coast, we'd have like hundreds of people on each day, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah, like at the same time kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely a challenge sometimes keeping up with the moderation. It'd be like, you'd read a topic, and by the time you got to the end of a page, you'd refresh it, and there'd be a second page kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so it was definitely very active back in its heyday.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's why for a while we had a really huge staff, um, just to kind of help keep track of it all and make sure people were following the rules, and that the discussion was staying on point and family friendly.
Yeah. And that's a pretty important thing, especially with message boards nowadays, is keeping that very family friendly. And you guys have a pretty robust filter. One that, because I've worked on sites that have a filter that just, blurt it out. They kind of just, the black squares and that's that. But you
Hmm.
guys have a filter that changes things. Um, Now there is a running joke. A lot of people will comment. There is a word that gets filtered out to "cool dude," and I figure I'll ask, what was the thought process going behind something like that, changing it to that?
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of fun with the filter back in the day, and that wasn't necessarily me doing that. That was kind of before I had access to all those buttons.
Ah,
But
okay.
some of the people, that was probably Bionicle Rex, who was one of the early admins on BZ Power, and definitely shaped the site in a lot of ways. And he had an interesting sense of humor, and did a lot of those interesting filters that people saw. We actually went back. It was almost 5 years ago at this point. We really went through and revamped the word filter. So there's a lot less of that kind of stuff now. We're a bit less strict than we used to be, but
Okay.
the jokes live on. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's one fascinating thing about BZ Power because not only was it so influential in the Bionicle community as Bionicle was kind of going through its first run, but it has subcultures inside of subcultures and its own kind of way of life almost. Because even somewhere such as the comics form, which is something so incredibly unique that I've seen to BZ Power, is just it's got its own mythology, its own history, just inside of the website. And so when that was kind of really ramping up, 2003, 2004, kind of onward from there, how was that moderating that, and what was that like? I'm sure it was a bit overwhelming at times.
Yeah, it's funny looking back at some of the stuff that was going on back then. It was kind of like memes before people called them memes.
Yeah.
Um, we're just that ahead of the curve, I guess. But it's just little inside jokes and stuff, and it just required being active and reading everything, which is fine because I think pretty much if you were on the staff back then, you were there because you love Bionicle and you're having a good time with the community. So um, it was just kind of like making sure you were up to date with everything going on, and it could definitely be a little difficult at times when every now and then groups of people kind of wanted to go against the rules a little bit and try to sneak things by, but
Hmm.
I think we would catch them most of the time and try to set people straight. But
Yeah, no.
it was always interesting. Lots of interesting behind the scenes conversations, trying to figure out stuff going on and make sure everyone's on the same page.
I can imagine. I one of the conversations that I feel would be most fascinating to be there for was really, really, really early on, when the whole maybe you can kind of set some things straight as far as the situation was concerned. The
Hmm.
Maori incident, when Lego was kind of going through that public issue with them pertaining to the names. I know BZPower got hit by a bit of residual because someone over there decided to protest it and attack the front page. Now, a lot of people think that, and maybe you can clear this up. A lot of people think that the Maori people sued Lego, took them to court successfully, no holds barred, and just beat them. And I've heard conflicting things as I heard they settled out of court. That's how we get to keep some certain names, but not things like Tahunga. But what was that situation like, or was that a little bit before your time?
Yeah, no, I certainly remember that. They basically someone for whatever reason, um, I decided that BZPower was somehow associated with Lego, and decided to have a DOSS, denial of service, and took the site down for a little bit. Um, uh, and so it was that was pretty much our only kind of real interaction with during that incident. And there's some messages posted on the forum by some individuals, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what was going on back on the Mayor's end, as far as kind of what they, if it was like organized or if it was just a couple people deciding to take things into their own hands. But that was kind of all that affected us, and it took us around, took us down for a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly don't remember exactly what happened with Lego. I'd have to go back and try to find it, but I'd assume it was probably some sort of settlement. I don't think. I think if it went to court, it would have been in court for a good amount of time, and
Mm-hmm.
it would have kind of made some more waves. And it definitely seems like it was kind of something that Lego, wants to be respectful and stay happy with everyone. That's kind of like their brand values, right? Their brand values isn't to sue and countersue and
Of
all
course,
that.
yeah.
So I'm sure they wanted to kind of try to say, hey, our bad, and what can we do to make this right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just me thinking and my kind of overall knowledge of Lego, not any specifics as far as how the case went.
Yeah, of course. Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, it's fascinating because you guys have seen really a whole swath of Lego's history and kind of it being brought into the digital age and getting to see that. And you guys have kind of played a part in helping Lego kind of establish that presence because certainly Greg Farshty for the longest time he was on uh, the BZ Power forums. and he was
Hmm.
answering questions. And that kind of happened not, as I understand it, not exactly deliberately, but he came on to quell some rumors that Bionicle was ending in 2003. And after that, you guys kind of struck an agreement with him. Is that right?
Yeah. I wasn't the one who kind of approached him or anything, so
Mm-hmm.
um, that part I don't know exactly how any agreement was made, but yeah, he just kind of came on because he saw stuff that was getting posted and wanted to kind of help out. And back then, Lego didn't quite have as much of an organized interaction with the community as they do now. It was all very kind of off the cuff. There was
Mm-hmm.
one guy who was doing most of like the official interaction at like fan events and that kind of stuff, and it was all very informal. It was kind of like who you knew and all that kind of stuff. So. Uh, there is so much Bionicle discussion taking place on BZPower, and it was kind of like at that point, if you wanted to reach the most number of Bionicle fans, that was the place to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Greg guy, I guess, decided to come by, and yeah, it was definitely um, a huge turning point, I think, in BZPower, having Greg there, interacting with the fans, helping hosting contests and turning stuff into canon and just answering questions was a huge thing and definitely really awesome to have
Yeah.
him there.
Yeah, because you mentioned the contests, and that is another thing that BZ Power was host to, the canonization contests. And I'm sure as time goes on, there's a lot of controversy, like, oh, should we canonize this or should we not? And ask Greg, and well, is it Greg's doing because he's canonizing it, or us because we're asking? And but way back then, it was revolutionary because it gave fans the opportunity to have a direct and very physical impact on things, especially in certain cases where items got named or things got fleshed out, events got added. And I'm sure for BZ Power that was a massive draw, being able to actually have some input on the story.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like looking back at it, I'm not sure how much it drew in people because I'm not sure like how back then, right, without as much social media, how you would have found out, oh, go to BZ Power, Greg Farshy's there. But I'm sure once they got onto BZ Power and they found that the writer for Bionicle was there, that definitely kept them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely a really cool opportunity and something that back then could kind of be done like in a small relationship like that,
Yeah.
but these days, that kind of concept of taking something from the community and turning it into something from Lego is now something that was formalized with like, Lego ideas is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like
Yeah.
almost a full circle thing with that.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that we kind of were in, yeah, kind of the ground floor in some of the Lego's early forays in that regard.
Yeah, no. When soon, right before you said like ideas, it's like, yep, that sounds like a familiar concept, and that has taken off. That's doing so well now. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I figure let me ask a couple of very quick, probably easy to answer, difficult, I don't know, questions. Kind of picking your children here. Obviously enough, bearing in mind that all the different forms have this very intricate individual history for all of them. Which one was maybe not your favorite, maybe easiest to moderate? Which ones were a little more problematic, I can guess, but which of the subforms kind of rank in that way?
Well, so honestly, favorite without a doubt is going to be RPG. Um,
Oh.
so that was kind of my brainchild. So going back to the Yahoo Club days, being a nerd that I was, I actually participated in a few text-based RPGs on Yahoo Clubs for other nerdy things, like Star Trek and Star Wars and,
Mhm.
and all those fun stuff. And so, on BZ Power, I kind of approached John and I was like, "Hey, I think it'd be really cool if we had this on our site." And he's like, "Sure, I'll make the forum and cheers, go for it." And so, I've definitely have not been involved actively in a number of years there. I just haven't had the time
Mhm.
because those stories like they'll take off and even today, it's I think still one of our more active forums with people just kind of doing that collaborative story making process.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of I think something also that kind of has set us apart in the community that you don't see on a lot of other Lego fan sites. So
Hmm.
definitely a lot of fun there. Um, as far as hardest to moderate, definitely be completely off topic.
Okay, that was a bit more
Just
of a
the
surprise.
craziness that goes on, that has gone on over there. Um, just the the activity levels and stuff. That's one of the forums where it'd be like certain topics, just like the nonstop posting. Back in the day, kind of like I was talking about before, at peak hours and stuff,
Hmm.
like the name the song or like word association games and stuff. Those would just be like going so
Uh,
fast and everything. And that was definitely a kind of a place where people would let off steam a little bit and kind of take their silliness if it wasn't allowed in other places. So it
mhm.
was definitely very crazy. There used to be a topic. This is going way back. It was Bionicle after hours,
Ooh,
and
uh-oh.
it was a topic over there, and it's just kind of like a silly like pseudo role playing kind of thing where people were just really silly and stuff. And it was a lot of fun, but definitely got a little interesting at times.
Oh boy. Gosh. That seems it always struck me as weird how even on a website which has made it very clear, this is meant to be family friendly, all ages. Hey, let's keep it Lego movie levels of acceptability. Everyone there's just certain people who want to kind of push the envelope just a little bit. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it happens. I think it's going to happen in any community once it gets to a certain size.
yeah.
Um, you know, there's always going to be a couple people who are kind of in that mindset, and eventually, you kind of learn to deal with it, learn to look for the signs, and maybe see if you can kind of cut it off before it starts. Talk to people and stuff. But
Hmm.
sometimes there's no talking to people. They have what they're setting out to do, and you just kind of got to adapt for it.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. See, when I had asked initially, it's like, oh well, I wonder what form's gonna be the most difficult one. You said completely off topic. That took me off guard because I spent most of my time in comics, and that place
Hmm.
was just constantly rowdy. Uh,
Yeah, that's true. That is another one. That's not one that I was always in on a regular basis though. That was like never kind of my main
yeah,
focus. So
that is
I was
true.
let other people deal with most of those messes.
Yeah, yeah. Granted, I say that being in comics and comics always kind of had that stigma of well, I think it's those guys. They think they're pretty hot cheese. Like, okay, comics. But I figure it's no secret, no surprise that probably outside of RPG, one of the more busier of forms and sections would be mocks. And I know that
Hmm.
mocking has a fairly substantial pillar in just all Lego communities. It's kind of intrinsic in its nature. But of course, mocking on BZPower has also had a very special place because the mock contests, and you guys have had so many. I think you guys are up to, was it 74 mock
Yeah,
contests?
yeah. And I think this summer was 74.
Okay, and some of those have been canonization contests, of course. Of Rahi weaponry. It's
Hmm.
very detailed in BSO1, I'm sure. But doing that, were you guys approached by Lego? I'm sure that recently you guys have been given items to give away from Lego, but while that was going on, way back then, what was that kind of a thing where you guys talked to them about it? You talked to Greg and then did it, or like how was that set up?
Yeah, that was just all thanks to having Greg on there. I don't know the specifics since I wasn't running a lot of those contests.
Hmm.
So I don't know if we reached out to Greg or if he reached out to us, but it was just having that dialogue there. He was definitely interact with the staff to make sure that uh, he was kind of playing well, and everything, and didn't want to upset anyone. So there's always a bit of a dialogue back and forth between us. Not me specifically. I definitely talk to Greg from time to time, but I think storyline and theories people talk to him a lot more.
Hmm.
And but so it just just kind of that happy coincidence of having him there. Back in the day, a lot of the prizes and stuff we had were all kind of generated from within the site. Either people donated them, or we went out and bought them.
Hmm.
Since there really wasn't the community support structure that we have these days with Lego, willing to send fan sites and clubs, so much free product.
Hmm. Yeah, that's understandable. Okay. Real quick, to anyone listening, make sure that if you have any questions for our guest, go ahead and send them over on Twitter using the hashtag the LJ Johnson Show, and we'll try and get around to them before the end of the show. All right. So moving on to a little more present day. BZPower has obviously still persisted. It is still around, and you guys are still very active in doing things. Specifically, of course, contests. Go ahead and, for anyone who may not be aware, tell us a bit about BZPower's incentive programs, what they've been up to. Basically, give us the scoop. What's been going on?
Sure, yeah. So, I think, these days with Bionicle, well, now Bionicle being canceled again, and before it came back, and while it was back, and it's not quite as big as it was originally, we've kind of taken the perspective that, we're never going to be as big as we were back in the day when Bionicle was, one of the top themes within Lego. So it's just kind of like the focus is on the community and trying to give back and, make people, have a good time within the community. So yeah, we have monthly raffles, giving out free sets. All you have to do is be a member and sign up for that. We do live streams pretty frequently where I'll build a set, or one of the big D2C sets, or several smaller sets. Sometimes we'll have some other people on built in with me, and we'll do plenty of giveaways throughout those. Usually some kind of smaller sets, poly bags, things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think one of the cool things we do, that kind of another thing that helps set us apart from some other online communities out there, is we have the convention circuit. So every year, we ask people to send us some of their creations, and we bring them up to a whole bunch of events around North America that we attend, and put them on display, because not everyone can make it out to an event. They don't have one in their area. Travel can be expensive.
Oh yeah.
Um, so or maybe they can only make it to one a year, but if we're able to take their creations to many, it kind of helps show them off to people. I think that the people who send their mocks, like kind of just sharing the joy and love of Bionicle and construction, and the people who see them get kind of awed by all the different things you can build with Bionicle parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of as a thank you from BZPower for people to send them on there, we have some perks and stuff that we'll give people. So free sets, masks. So I know this year some people are getting the transparent mask of fire from New York Comic Con, or
Oh.
the transparent neon green Skull Scorpio mask. So we got a few of those we're giving away, posters, and then some different perks on BZPower as well, like a custom member title and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of things just to kind of thank people for just sharing the love, and kind of keeping the Bionicle community alive.
Yeah.
There are some events that I've been to in the past year, which, thanks to the convention circuit, Bionicle has had like one of the biggest presences of any like Lego theme at that event, and which I think is still really impressive, that we can pull that off, considering that the theme is no longer active, that there's just
Mm-hmm.
still that much love and passion for it.
Yeah. No, it being at Brick Fair, Virginia this year, it seemed like the table grew from 2016. Like there were a lot of creations, fantastic and massive creations on display there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yep. That's Brick Fair, Virginia is definitely a very special show for the Bionicle community, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we used to have a huge presence, and I'm pretty sure you're right that we did grow a bit this year.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to touch on conventions in just a moment because I've like both times that I've been to Brick Fair, which has only been in the last 2 years this go round. I see you doing a ton of stuff, so I definitely want to touch on that. However, you brought up Bionicle not being active. Of course, it's second time, super tragic. I figure I'll pick your brain a little bit on Generation Two. What were your thoughts? Because running a site through Generation Two must have been excellent, but
Hmm.
what did you actually think of the theme and how it was handled?
Um, I thought that a lot of the sets were really great. I think they really modified, kind of extended the CCBS system to work well with Bionicle. That first wave of TOA in 2015 was fantastic.
Yeah.
They definitely did a good job of kind of capturing the feel of the original wave, but with like so much new and cool stuff with all the new posability and kind of design aesthetic that they have with the CCBS system. Um, some of the follow up waves didn't strike my fancy as much, but there were still some great pieces and stuff that we got as a result.
Hmm.
Um, but from the storyline perspective, I think that's where a lot of people had their issues with it.
Oh yeah.
And I think it started off interesting. It was definitely its own, trying to be its own thing, but maybe not quite as much emphasis on it as some people wanted.
Hmm.
And it was what it was. Um, it was definitely not as deep as the original Bionicle was,
Hmm.
and definitely a big shame for that. But times have changed a lot. Kids are different than they were back then. The internet's different, so
Yeah, that's
Lego
true.
was trying to figure out how Bionicle could fit in with their current properties and what kids want now. And you know, I definitely think that had if they had done like almost exactly what they did in 2001, I don't think Bionicle would have been any more of a success or failure. I think it probably would have been more of a failure this
Really?
time around.
Huh.
Just because the internet's moved on, right? No one's going to want to play a point and click adventure, or not no one, but the
Oh
kids aren't
yeah.
going to want to play a point and click adventure like we did back in 2001 and
Hmm.
stuff. It's just a different time. Um, it's not saying that I think they did everything perfectly. There are definitely probably things they could have done better, but I think people who wanted 2001 all over again, that's more the nostalgia talking than
Yeah.
good planning on Lego's part.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's fair.
but yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I definitely liked the sets as a whole in general. Some more than others. And I think they actually did a better job, in my opinion, going from 2015 to 2016 of continuing the TOA and like kind of modifying and updating them, but still having them recognizable than they ever did in the original Bionicle.
Ooh, really? Even
Except if
that's from Tanuva?
2001 to 2002 might be the closest.
Hmm.
But some of the stuff they did with the Metru to the Hordika,
Oh
or
gosh. Oh, that was a departure.
the
Yeah.
or the third time we got the original Toa, like the Mystica and the Fantoka,
Oh, Galley
like
Mystica.
there's definitely no easy correlation there between
Yeah.
2001 and those lines, so I think they did a good job with that this time around. Um, it's kind of hard though, right? You want to make the character recognizable, but you still need to make a new toy that you can sell people.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as it is with something like Ninjago, where the minifigure is only like a small part of the entire set, and you can make like a whole new vehicle for them. But as long as the character has the same color and the same face, it's still a Kai or still a Jay.
Yeah.
So
And
definitely a bigger challenge, and props to the designers for rising to that.
it definitely. Construction has always been very character focused, but you can have a large expanse with system like a scene or a landscape.
Hmm.
Yeah. Then all right, that's a very in-depth answer. Thank you. Um yeah, no. I agree. I definitely think that there's a lot Lego could have done differently, but you know, doing what they did with what they had. And I definitely don't think that there's a criticism out there saying, oh, they just didn't care, or the set designers obviously didn't care about what they were doing or stuff like that. I think that's complete and utter hogwash, and it's
Oh yeah,
evident
for
from
sure.
talking with so many people involved in it that they definitely did care, and they just had to do things differently. And I definitely believe that what you're saying holds a lot of merit.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things with the, G2 is that, in the original Bionicle, right? We had Greg Farschi on BZPower, and he
Hmm.
was definitely very involved with the community, um, and with the storyline. But he didn't always, and actually really didn't have much input at all necessarily into like the set design and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and the set designers were still kind of separated from the community, and I'm sure they followed the community a bit and saw what we were saying to some degree. But the second time around, the designers cared really deeply about what the community thought, and the amount of interaction I think that there was between the community and the team at Lego was definitely more so than there ever was. I mean, the panel at New York Comic Con that they did where the designers were out there and talking to the fans and stuff.
Hmm.
They definitely cared. Um, they're at Brick Fair, New Jersey in 2016. One of the Bionicle set designers came out, and talking to him there, there's a lot of passion
Hmm.
um, there and stuff like that. So they definitely cared a lot. They definitely knew there was a lot of expectations from the fan community, and I think they definitely tried to do the best they could. Um, and at the end of the day, it wasn't their decision whether or not to continue the line. And they kind of have to bow to management pressure, and management has to deal with what the market wants, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I would definitely not disparage the designers or the team behind the theme because they definitely cared a lot.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. And what you just said reminded me. Corvin, I believe, is Vazok's friend from BZPower.
Hmm.
He was one of the folks that was a set designer. I know at least he did some work on the Journey to One Makuta that he brought to Brick Fair, Virginia 2016. And he was there. He was very involved. He was there this year. What am I saying? And, talking to him, it's pretty evident he obviously had some investment there. He was a fan of the series. He became a set designer. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
I
think he
mean,
cared.
it's a really weird thing with BZ Power having been around so long, getting to see the full circle. So yeah, Vazok's friend, Brick Thing, another member of BZ
Yeah, brick
Power,
thing.
Nick Voss. They're both designers now in Billund, um, and neither of them worked on Bionicle directly, but again, the actual design team knows that those two, are two huge Bionicle fans, and so while Nick and Corvin weren't designing the sets, you better believe that they were hanging out with the
Yeah,
actual set designers, giving their input and stuff, and kind of sharing their passion for the line.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, definitely nothing but passion and love for Bionicle in Lego on the design team.
absolutely. Yeah, I think there was a popular question going around way back, kind of around the time that it ended. So I'll ask it here. Would you prefer to see Bionicle come back again, maybe in the far, far, far future? Or would you rather, we've had it twice. The first run was amazing. It was just so explosive in popularity. And the second run, it existed, it had its stay. Would you rather see it again, or would you rather just, be content knowing we had those two times, get more in the system and the new construction ventures Lego has been making?
That's a tough one, I think. You know, I think as long as people kind of have the right expectations going into it, I wouldn't mind seeing Bionicle again. Um,
Hmm.
it's never going to be what it was back then, and I'm not sure if you've heard of the book Brick by Brick
Oh,
by
love that
David
book.
Robertson. Yeah, so I definitely recommend to anyone to go out and read that. and there's like a whole chapter that's essentially about Bionicle.
Yeah.
And when I read that and I saw BZPower get mentioned there, that was like a huge. Like I had a huge smile on my face, thanks to that. But you know, it was kind of like the perfect theme at the perfect time at the perfect point in like Lego's history. Um, it was lightning in a bottle,
Hmm.
and we're never going to capture that again, right? I don't think, and there's never say never, I guess,
Hmm.
but you just have to go in there with the right expectations that Bionicle is never going to be like the top selling theme at Lego,
Yeah.
because like I said, that the kids are different, and maybe there will be a time like way far in the future when things will come around back again, and Bionicle will be the cool thing. But I think as long as people understand that it's not going to be that like 10-year theme again, that it would definitely be cool to see it for a little bit and have some fun.
Yeah. No, I feel that's fair. I completely forgot there was that portion in Brick by Brick, and honestly, I know that it's kind of a joke amongst my listeners at least, because when I was with TTV, we would always plug that specific book with Audible, but it is
Hmm.
genuinely just a phenomenal read, even outside the Bionicle chapter. It's just so fascinating. I definitely recommend it. But all right, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Absolutely, because Bionicle was definitely unique in how it was pulled off, in the way that it was really just a perfect storm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think as long as we still have construction themes wherever Lego goes in the future, I'll be happy.
mhm.
But I'd be extra happy if Bionicle came back for a couple years just to kind of bring it back around a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, I would love to see any kind of original theme in construction in the future. I love Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I want something more than Star Wars when it comes to CCBS.
yeah, yeah. Those faces. No. Okay. Now, wheeling back around, I mentioned this a little earlier. Conventions. Now, like I said, both times I've been there, you have been busy as a bee in a beehive, moving around constantly, doing a ton of stuff. Um, BZPower has been fairly influential, I want to say. I mean, of course, feel free to clear this up. When it comes to conventions, or at least the Brick Fair series of conventions, you guys seem to be doing a lot at those. And
Yeah.
what is that like? How did that get set up? How'd the involvement happen there?
Um, it kind of comes from so way back in the day. I think probably one of the, if not the first fan convention was Brickfest,
Mm,
which took place in the Washington D.C. area. I want
mm-hmm,
to say the first one was like '99 or something. Um, and it was very small back then, from what I hear. The first convention I went to was in 2005. 2005. Yeah, it's been so long. After no, I think 2006.
oh wow.
2006 was the first one, and that was Brickfest, and it was the last Brickfest in the DC area. And already by that point, we had a couple members of BZPower and some staff members who were going down there. And back then, Bionicle was a big thing, so there's already some good presence from Bionicle mocks and stuff. And in 2007, there wasn't, Brickfest ended and there was no event in the DC area. And so in 2008, a guy by the name of Todd Webb was like, this can't stand. DC area needs a Lego convention. I'm starting Brick Fair.
Mm,
And at that point, we'd kind of reached the critical mass in the Bionicle community that a lot of us who had started in the community when we were younger were old enough that we could go to these conventions. We're adults, we had some disposable income, we could make it happen.
mm-hmm,
And back then there were so few conventions that Brick Fair was the one we kind of had all agreed to go to. That had kind of been going on. It'd been kind of building up steam since with Brickfest.
mm-hmm.
And Brick Fair 2008, we had a big group of people there, members and staff and stuff, and we just all had a great time. So it just kind of became a thing that we just kept going. and just kind of has snowballed over the years,
Yeah.
and to the point where, I've gotten to know Todd really well. So I end up going to every Brick Fair event pretty much, and just kind of help him, not from a BZPower perspective necessarily, but just from a fan perspective and wanting to
Mhm.
put on a great show. And that's kind of where the convention circuit comes in. Like, I'm going to these events already, so might as well bring some BZPower mocks and stuff. But
Mhm.
outside of the Bionicle section, I'll run games, I'll help with the setup and the teardown. But because that Virginia event has always been like the kind of focal point for the Bionicle community, we always try to do some extra special stuff. Um, whether it be like a seminar or some games or like just kind of group hangouts and stuff. In the past couple of years, we've done some drafts, set drafts and stuff.
Mhm.
And then this year, I think this year was the first time we did a game where we had a combo build with
Ah,
CCBS, and I think that was a
yes.
big success.
That was a
And
lot of fun.
yeah, a lot of people seem to have fun there. So it just it kind of goes back to that giving back to the community and stuff. We're fortunate in a position where Lego has sent us a whole bunch of Lego sets, CCBS, Bionicle, and Star Wars stuff,
Mhm.
and just trying to figure out ways to kind of give it out to the community and kind of share that with everyone. And I thought that was a real fun way to do it.
Yeah.
And looking to hopefully do it at some other events this coming year in 2018. Even though they don't necessarily always have as big of a Bionicle turnout, just maybe get some new people into it by giving them some free sets. So
Yeah. Yeah, kind of kickstart that because it's only going to take one, and then gotcha.
right, yeah. Once you see what you can do with the parts and get your hands on them, kind of maybe open up some doors in the mind there and figure out, oh hey, maybe if I'm not building just a Bionicle creation, I can still use some of these parts in interesting ways in my system creations, which
Yeah.
is always cool to see the set designers do that too sometimes.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no kidding. And heck, even with Tooth Dominoes and Nick Voss keep on doing the Galador mocks. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
there
those
there aren't
are
limits
ridiculous.
anymore.
I've heard rumors that that Nick has pretty much bought out all of the Galandor on Bricklink.
I would believe it. Gosh, that guy. I think him and some of his friends, they sat down with just a table full
Hmm.
of Galador pieces and made like a spaceship. It's like, okay, we get it. Their Lego has no limits. It doesn't even matter. Even if you're using those scallop babies, fine. They're endless possibilities. But yeah, no, that's fascinating. Yeah, because when I went to Brick Fair, Virginia twice now, both times it's just been incredible to see the Bionicle setup, especially this year because Brendan Shadowgear he brought over that giant mech, and then
Hmm.
Bricks of Awesome. He goes by other names, but he came over from New Zealand and he brought that large Lego the construction dragon with a cup of tea.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah, I was
spectacular.
talking with him at one point, and I'm like, "So you're from New Zealand? Why did you come all the way out here to like this event?" And that's what the community says, right? You talk to the community about where you want to go to show off your Bionicle creations, and it's Brick Fair, Virginia.
Yeah.
Um, and so we've kind of set that reputation, and apparently people keep listening because it keeps getting bigger every year. It seems like.
Yeah, no kidding. I correct me if I'm wrong. I think Brick Fair, Virginia, like not only is it probably one of the larger gatherings for Bionicle fans, but I think it is the largest Lego convention in the world.
Um, it depends, I guess, on how you measure it. Definitely in North America, it's like it's between that and Brickworld Chicago as far as who's the biggest, as
Mm.
far as like square footage and stuff, and AFOL's attending.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it definitely takes things to another level.
Oh.
If you ever go to like any other smaller conventions, any of the other brick fairs, or like Brick Fiesta or Bricks by the Bay, they're,
Hmm.
they're definitely a lot of fun. I always enjoy the smaller events I go to because you can meet like everyone at those events. But
Yeah.
then you go to Brick Fair, Virginia, and you can spend like the entire 5 days, and then like Sunday, as everyone's packing stuff up, you can see something as it's half in a box. It's like I missed that the entire weekend. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just the number of creations and the number of awesome creations that are worth checking out there is just second to none, I
Yeah. No,
think.
it's such a big place. Just it's amazing. I'm sure that I missed things this year.
Hmm.
Okay. Real quick, as we start to kind of wind down and wrap up, I'm gonna go ahead and get into some Twitter questions. So anyone listening, make sure that if you have a question and you just forgot to send it in, you have just a few more minutes. Send it in hashtag the Eljay Johnsen Show. Send that over on Twitter. All right. So our first question comes from the, as always, ever so kind Kevin Hinkle, and he asks, besides the building materials, what are the key differences and commonalities between system and construction fans? Wait, of course, construction was autocorrected to construction. Nice.
That darn autocorrect always getting in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit when I was talking about, maybe getting some other people into the theme or at least getting them aware of the parts and stuff. It's, the parts are obviously very different. And I've talked to, a lot of people because I kind of get known at a lot of the events as that Bionicle guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, people always come to me and it's always kind of like the same thing. It's like, I have a few sets, but I never quite understood them. It's just so different from system. Um, and yeah, I mean, you're not stacking bricks on top of bricks, but it's still, I think, there's still that core kind of creative aspect of Lego is there, where you kind of have to look at the parts and imagine how they're going to fit together, in a way that achieves whatever you're trying to set out to do. Um, I think construction tends to lend itself more to more organic things. Obviously, it's kind of designed as the creature and character building system is
Mm-hmm.
CCBS, so it's kind of designed more to make you know humans and animals versus a 20-story tall skyscraper or a locomotive. Um, so I think it's just like another tool within your Lego portfolio to make a different type of thing. But that doesn't mean you can't do something that's not a humanoid or a creature with CCBS. I don't know if you saw one of I guess the winner of our contest, our BBC contest this summer for the Star Wars one, was actually a Boba Fett's Slave One made out of Bionicle parts. So it's a spaceship made out of Bionicle, and yeah, it just shows you can build anything out of it if you really kind of think creatively enough.
Huh.
Um,
I
so
feel like
kind of
that
going,
rings a bell. Like I kind of saw it, and it's like on the tip of my tongue.
yeah, it was off to the side a little bit in a different section because we ran out of space in Bionicle at Brickford, Virginia, but it was
Mm-hmm.
there. But just kind of going back to Kevin's question, it's just um, it's a different kind of mindset I think you have to get in because it's not such a rigid building system.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to think of more of the angles and the flow rather than just kind of the stacking and okay, how do I flip the bricks 90 degrees or whatever precise angle that fits within the Lego system, that they have a slope that is at this angle or a wedge plate that's at the specific angle.
Yeah.
With Bionicle parts, you can kind of go anywhere in the spectrum, which is kind of freeing to a degree. And sometimes you just kind of have to break out of your mindset of the rigidness that system tends to instill upon a creation and go a little bit more natural with CCBS.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way of looking at it, and you do need to. It there's a lot that comes with the two different styles and systems, and
Hmm.
I think that's a really good look into it. That just as a start, because they're so unique and intricate in that way.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I
well,
mean it's great because they still the parts still work together if you want to. You
yeah,
can definitely combine them, and I think most of the uh, more popular Bionicle builders always incorporate system elements into their builds as nice details and stuff. So
yeah,
I think you kind of have to use both if you want that full experience.
absolutely. I've seen a lot of people use system to kind of fill gaps, especially like in the back of the Anika leg piece.
Hmm.
They'll use it. The I don't know the terminology, but it's a smooth kind of curved piece, and they'll fill it in. Do that for the back of the arms that they use as the legs they use as arm pieces. Yeah, no, a
Right.
lot of interconnectivity, and they kind of do that a little bit when because there's a lot of discussion between two different types of construction, Generation One and the CCBS, and a lot of people talk about that. And one of the better ways to really kind of integrate them is to incorporate system, because system and CCBS are a
Hmm.
little bit closer in in their utilization, in their methodology of use, because they're both kind of a system, a consistent, cohesive look and use. And so, kind of incorporating the two of them system is really, really helpful in doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Lego actually patented the CCBS system. You can go
Really?
look it up and see it there. And at least one, I don't remember. So I believe one of the patent holders or the name patent is Charan Minovi, who is one of the lead designers on Bionicle Gen 2. So it's just really cool to see that it was very purposely designed to be a system. That can be expanded and kind of have a longevity versus G1 Bionicle, where every year you kind of got a different aesthetic to the parts and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, like 2001 doesn't look anything like 2006.
Hmm.
Completely different. Yeah. Interesting. I did not know that about the patent holder. That is fascinating. Okay. Well, thank you for that question, Kevin. I would love to, if I had more time, gush about how nice you are, but I gotta move on. We got
He's
another
somewhat
question.
awesome.
Oh, yeah. We did get another question. This is from Ali. Ali asks, Black Six, what is your favorite Toa and your favorite mask?
Well, being an old timer, I have to go with the original Tahu. Um, just for that nostalgia. He was
Yeah.
the one of the first Bionicle sets I got, and I always have a special place in my heart there. Uh, Favorite mask? That's a tough one. Um, so many interesting designs over the years.
Oh, yeah.
I might have to cop out and just go with the original How
That's
with
understandable.
Tahoe.
I mean, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, that's what I do. Well, what's your favorite Toa? Liwa? Mask? Miru? Done. That's it.
Yeah. There've been a lot of great ones though, definitely.
Yeah. And then there have been a lot of, well, we don't talk about the Kanohi Elda. That was a special mask. Um, all right. Well, that about wraps it up for questions that have been sent in. Thank you very much for answering those, and thank you everyone listening for sending those in. I actually have a question. How in the world do you go so long successfully without changing your avatar? Because I can't think of you and not think of like the guy in the cloak with like the blue fire in his hand. Like, how? It's been years.
I just kind of set it and forget it. I don't know.
It,
um, yeah, it's just kind of stuck with me. That was is a piece of artwork drawn by one of our former staff members, Schizo Kaita.
ooh. Mhm.
And he did a whole bunch of sketches of the staff way back in the day, and I really loved it. So it just kind of became my avatar, and I try to use it pretty much everywhere online and stuff. So it just kind of become the thing for me.
Yeah, no, I cannot think of Black Six without that guy. It's like I don't think I have ever maybe outside of maybe an April Fool's joke. I don't think
Hmm.
I've ever seen you without that avatar. It's just it's a feat in and of itself.
Yeah, it's been a while since we did a prank or something on BZPower, and I had all the staff change their avatars.
Oh
And
yeah.
now you got the wheels turning, so I'll have to
Uh-oh.
change it just to mess with you now.
Oh gosh darn it. You're gonna throw me off too. It'll work because one day I'm gonna.
Yeah, no one's gonna know who I am.
Yeah, no, it's Black Six, but he doesn't have the avatar.
Must be an imposter.
It's a duplicate account. We have to ban you on technicality. But yeah, no. Oh, that's something we didn't even have time to get into. The BZPower's April Fool's jokes, like Pori Duma and Vaki's own power.
Hmm.
Gosh, we're
Yeah,
gonna have
we've
to.
had a lot of fun over the years.
Yeah, no, it. That's what I'm saying. BZ Power has a long and rich history, and we'll have to have you on again if you have the time.
Yeah, definitely, and we can see if we can get maybe some other people from Bionicle over the years to come by and share
Yeah,
their thoughts.
that would be fantastic. All right,
Because my
well, we're.
memory definitely isn't perfect.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Thank you very much for joining me. If Andrew, is there anything else you would like to impart upon listeners?
uh, don't think so. So yeah, appreciate it. It's been a blast. So thanks for having me, LJ, and hope people keep kind of keeping Bionicle alive with their builds, their stories, their artwork, and just kind of talking about it. As long as we keep talking about it as fans, it'll still be a force to be reckoned with in the community.
Oh yeah, especially at the conventions. All right, where can people find you on social media?
Pretty much Black Six, just about everywhere. So yeah, Twitter at Black Six. That's where I do most of my social mediaing. And then, of course, BZ Power's got its own bevy of social media profiles. So at BZP Tweets, YouTube or youtube.com/BZPower, BZP Gram on Instagram, and BZP Book on Facebook. So that's how I interact with the community a lot is through most of BZ Power's accounts. So definitely check those out if you're into to Bionicle and contraction and Lego stuff in general.
Fantastic. And then I know that you guys do Twitch Tuesdays. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. So we have our twitch.tv/BZPower. So we stream just about every Tuesday. We've been going through the Lego Ninjago movie recently. It's been interesting and getting close to wrapping it up, but that's okay because Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 is right around the corner.
Oh, you're right, it is. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, fantastic. Make sure to go ahead and check all those out. I will try and link as many of those in the description as I possibly can once the episode is done processing. All right, well, Andrew, it has been a blast. Thank you so very much for being here
Yeah.
and walking us down memory lane. It's been quite quite interesting listening to you talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks again.
Absolutely. All right, and thank you all very much for listening. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed. Please feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comments. The Eljay Johnsen Show airs every single Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Make sure to head over to Twitter, where I announce every week's guest. And if you have a question for either me or that guest, feel free to email that in at ljjohnson@gmail.com. And then, of course, on Twitter at the Eljay Johnsen. Thank you all so very much for listening, and we will see you all next week. You have a great day.